My name is Denise Valentine. I am a professional storyteller and historical performer and lifelong resident of Philadelphia. I'm also, I function as the editor for the Reconstruction's Atmosphere or Working Group. And the entire project is organized into atmospheres or working groups. Reconstructions, futures, sovereignty, sanctuary, and movement. And so I'm the editor for the Reconstructions Working Group, and I help to bring together the collaborators that would be involved in this atmosphere. And together we got to define and continually refine what our atmosphere means. And we were given a list of issues or urgencies, and we narrowed them down to the two we were most concerned about. And the urgencies or the issues that we decided to focus on are mass incarceration and gentrification and displacement as urgent issues in the city of Philadelphia and the nation. Rising out of the ashes of damage and neglect, Reconstructions speaks to rewriting personal and historical narratives and reimagining the built environment through the lens of mass incarceration and displacement. We met together for over a year. We went on field trips together to discover our city or rediscover our city through this lens. And we had a public phase we chose two public sites in the city to enact these issues. One of them was Reconstruction, Inc. at 18th and Tioga in North Philadelphia. Reconstruction, Inc. is a transformative reentry program. The other public site was at 4th and Master Tillman Community Garden, where we constructed a model of an affordable house inside the community garden as a place to have programming about gentrification and displacement. So what you see here is a combination of those two public sites. The frame represents the model of the affordable house. The one we built at 4th and Master, we actually left it there for the community. What you see inside the house came from that place at 1808 Tioga, called Reconstruction, Inc. So the easy chairs, the mirror, the shield, all of these things came from inside Reconstruction, Inc. And they actually had their monthly meetings right here inside the structure at the museum and invited the public to participate in these very powerful, very moving meetings with them once a month. In their case, Reconstruction, Inc. is a transformative reentry program. So they have a curriculum, a community and capacity building curriculum that ex-offenders go through and have a personal transformation, and then they act as, they are leaders in their community, essentially guiding other ex-offenders through this process. I can now take you inside so you can get a better look here. And so this is a picture of Amber Art and Design in a performative movement. Assembling the objects in the museum was as much a part of the process as everything else was. We did it very ceremoniously. And behind you, you'll see a set of keys hangs by the door frame. These keys belong to Brujo de la Mancha. Brujo has been housing insecure for all of his life. So every time he has had to move, he has kept and collected. So all of these keys represent all of the places that Brujo has lived in his life, and each key has a story. So he did a performance here inside the house.
That's his life story almost.
Yes, and he's still, as a matter of fact, he's facing deportation. In other words, what I'm trying to say is the collaborators that were involved in this project, this is not just an art project for us. We experience these issues, we live these issues. We've either been homeless, or we've been incarcerated, or we have family members, or friends or neighbors that are experiencing these issues right now.
With spider web on it of some sort?
Yes, this is a shield that was at the space at Reconstruction, Inc. It says, "When spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion." And this was very significant to me as a storyteller, as a griot or a keeper of culture and tradition in my community. This is a piece that I specifically requested be brought from Reconstruction, Inc. to hang here in the Perlman. But it also speaks to how we felt about this issue. Mass incarceration and gentrification are huge issues, and individually it's very hard to feel like you're being effective. But we feel like together we can have an impact on this issue.
Yeah. Great.
So I'm one of the editors on the project, and I helped them plan their public phase it took about 8 months. And this was the document. I take visual notes, and this is the documentation of it. And they have this is their basic underlying ideas: changing yourself to change the world. And these were just some of our notes about the different components of it, and the model through teach-ins and workshops.
Work groups.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So it's a very amazing group to be involved with, because they basically look at going from individualism to reciprocity, from alienation to community. So there's these 4 basic ideas they have that underlie their methodology. It's very restorative and really amazing, thinking about re-entering citizens and needing to have a whole self in that transition, not just a job, which usually bottoms out because of all the other stress and trauma.
This is the quote that was actually, it came from the public phase of the program, where we did a program called Lighting of the Bridges, where we lit up an underpass in North Philadelphia with images of the history of incarceration, but also images of hope. And this is the quote that helped me reconcile this dual feeling I have about my country, a country that I love, but I didn't always feel like my country loved me back. This is the quote that kind of sums up that feeling for me, and how I can continue to do this work, why I never get discouraged.
So speaking of this work, let's go take a look at some more.
All right, so I'll take you over to this far wall. Now, the sketch on the wall, the lines and the dots, represent a map of Pennsylvania. The dots are Pennsylvania prisons and correctional facilities. If you get a little closer to the dots, you can see 2 numbers. One number represents the number of Philadelphians in those prisons. And the second number represents the distance their families have to travel in order to see them. The miniature portraits are portraits of lifers, most of whom were incarcerated as juveniles. And they remain incarcerated to this day. This is Sharon Wiggins. Sharon Wiggins was sentenced to death at the age of 18. She was very instrumental in this, the fight for lifers. However, unfortunately, she passed away. And this is a tribute to Sharon Wiggins. The three women here, they organized transportation, bus transportation for families to visit their loved ones in prison. And here we see a declaration from Reentry Think Tank, sort of a reimagining of we the people. The People's Paper Co-op helped ex-offenders, well, first of all, they had an expungement clinic where they helped to expunge their criminal records. And then they took that paper, the paper from the criminal records, and remade this paper. In other words, they turned it into pulp and remade the paper, and then each of the ex-offenders wrote their declarations. All of the collaborators in Reconstruction, Inc. were already doing this work. In other words, we didn't just come together and decide to do this work on mass incarceration and gentrification. This is the work they were already doing. In some ways, we just amplified the work they were doing.
Yeah. I mean, the fact is we're in the Philadelphia Museum of Art right now. And I can't imagine that has been the regular home for work like this.
No, it has not. And that has been one of the main goals of this project, is to make this work, the work of the marginalized, the work of the formerly incarcerated, held in esteem, the same way European masterpieces are held. We believe that this represents contemporary, the art about contemporary life. These signs that say "We buy houses" are very typical. They hang all around Philadelphia. And there's a group who went around and took these signs down and reassembled them here, but they changed the telephone number. If you notice, the telephone number on them are all the same. So if you call this telephone number, you will receive them, you will get to listen to messages about people who have been in various stages of housing insecurity, but you can also leave your own message. So all throughout the project, we've built in ways for people to interact and to express to tell us what their experience is, and also for them to react. Let me take you around the corner here. This is the photography of Tishka K. Smith. It's called Boundaries, Battlegrounds, and Blessings. This is photography. Photography is near the site of one of our public sites. All of the sounds that Tishka collected while this house was situated at 4th and Master. She did a series of podcasts with neighbors, with collaborators, with people just walking by. This card art is by Stacy Moore. Stacy Moore was formerly homeless, and now she's on the board of the Women's Community Revitalization Project, who are housing advocates. And Part of our process was something called, we did just neighbor surveys. How do you be a just neighbor? What does it take to create a just neighborhood? So Stacy helped us express what those surveys had to say. Many of the survey participants wanted to remain anonymous. And so this was the way we got to express what those neighbors had to say.
I see the key reemerges
Yes.
as a
Yes.
kind of symbolic rendition of the kind of possibility of having like a place your own, is it?
Yeah, so all of the discussions we had and all of the talks we had with neighbors are reflected here. This beautiful quilt is by textile artist Betty Lee Craft. There are historical images from Temple University Library and Archives, historical images of Kensington over many, many years. So it's called Kensington Memories. So there's a redlining map. Another map is the ethnic breakdown of the community from 1925.
The only thing that's problematic is
So just one more area to show you here.
that's the problem. It's not loading. I mean, it says connected.
So my work as a storyteller is very much involved with history, and so my desire was to tie history into this contemporary issue, the contemporary situation with mass incarceration and gentrification. So the museum had this piece in their archives by Carol Walker. It's called No World, and it's part of her series. The series is called An Unpeopled Land in Uncharted Waters. And to me, this piece really symbolizes that tie between historical displacement and what's happening today. So I've been working with this issue for a very long time, and these are objects that I encountered during my research journey. This silver dish from the Norris family I encountered when I worked at the Philadelphia History Museum. There's a story etched in the rim of the dish. It tells about a little slave girl who was brought here by Isaac Norris after his father perished in the great earthquake of Port Royal, Jamaica in 1697 in Port Royal, Jamaica. There was an earthquake where literally most of that city just sunk into the sea. But salvaged from that earthquake was this silver dish, along with a little enslaved girl who was they were both brought back to Philadelphia. And she grew up here enslaved, gave birth to a daughter who was also enslaved and eventually manumitted. But throughout the course of all the research I did on them, I never found a name for them. They remained nameless. And this little tiny slave collar, it's a female slave collar that I came across at the Lest We Forget Slavery and Holocaust Museum, which was formerly in Port Richmond section of Philadelphia. When I saw this object, it was displayed along with a matching mirror, brush, and whip as a gift for a slave mistress. The Norris family were considered the founders, members of the Norris family. They were mayors, they were signers of our founding documents. So that name, Norris, is very significant here in Philadelphia. Also,
Yeah.
My mother just happened to grow up on Norris Street, and my great grandmother was born in Jamaica. So all of these stories I have a personal connection with, and that theme that also runs through this entire project. That everything here, we all have personal connections to.
Well, listen, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
And their, they say Reconstruction, in their case, what does it mean for them?
Well, it's funny that the name of our atmosphere just happened to be the same, or almost the same as the name of that Reconstruction Inc. Another one was constructed here And so together, we started meeting. We had some of our meetings at Reconstruction, Inc. We actually carried some of these objects on a city bus, on public transportation, and walked them through the streets.